My name is George Robinson. I'm one of the product designers on the LeadHootz team, and in this video I'm going to demonstrate how to set up a prospect list. One of the first things you'll have to do though after installing LeadHootz is make sure that you've added at least one social media account, so at least one of these three, either LinkedIn, Facebook or Twitter. I've got added a LinkedIn account, Liz Matthews. You'll also need to make sure that once you've added this account, if you right click on it, there should be, if you haven't already paid after you added your social media account, there is a create new subscription button that you're going to need to click on if you want to access some of the other features of the tool. So without further ado, I'm going to go in and demonstrate how to set up a new prospect list. The first thing we need to do is double click on the new account, and you'll be presented with a schedules manager, and this is really what drives all of your campaigns. The first thing we're going to have to do, since we don't have any schedules in the list, is click on new campaign, and you can see that the only thing we can select at this stage is create prospect list. So we'll go ahead and click on that. And now you can see we're presented with this this panel, which really comprises everything we need to generate a prospect list. Everything else is disabled at this stage. The only thing you can do is enter a search URL. So what do I mean by that? Well, let me go to my LinkedIn account, and I've already run a basic search for managing directors in Bristol, and you can see at the top here that this has gone and created a search link. Now if I go ahead and change this, you'll see that as we update and add more and more filters to the search, the URL at the top changes as well. And this is important because that link effectively comprises everything we need to know to be able to identify the profiles or prospects that we want to target. And you can see that in this case we've got 715 results in Gloucester. Now if I just go back to the previous search for Bristol, you can see that we are being told by LinkedIn that we have 4,300 results. LinkedIn surely has that data, but what we're getting in our search isn't all of that data. You can see if I scroll to the bottom that we've got 100 pages we can search on with 10 profiles per page. We're only actually getting 1,000 of those results. So what about the other 3/4 of that data? We really do need access to all of it. And so that's one of the disadvantages sometimes of using social media as a source of data, because it doesn't necessarily give you all of the data. And also it doesn't actually give us all of the filters that we're going to need to get at the right data. LinkedIn is by far one of the better tools, and this is only the free version. Sales Navigator and LinkedIn Recruiter provide even more search filters, but as we'll see in a minute, they don't provide all of the filters that would actually be useful if we're being serious about lead generation. Well, these tools, these platforms aren't really lead generation tools. They're really there to help prospects or profiles to be engaged with other profiles. But what we're needing it for is a bit more advanced. So the first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to copy this link, or I'll go back and take the Gloucester link. I'm going to take this link, copy it, and go back to our LeadHootz prospect list panel, and I'm going to paste that in there. And you can see now that a few things have become enabled. Firstly, the countries text box. We can manually, if we wanted to, generate our own separate search, or we can allow the software to go ahead and get the data directly from our original search. And what LeadHootz will do is it will query the actual search from our LinkedIn filters. It will take the data and it will put it into our prospect list, like you can see here. Now that's one way we can quickly do it, but the real benefit at this stage is that you can see, aside from the filters that LinkedIn provides, we've got some additional filters that LinkedIn doesn't provide. So we can actually extend our filter to look for gender, for age range, salary expectations, and even experience. Now we're going to leave everything as it is. We've got two sources here. I'll just mention this. We've got two sources of data whenever we're talking about creating a prospect list. This source here which is our social media source, everything that comes from this. And this is our secondary source. So whenever you're editing a search in this particular box, this comes from our own data. And we have access to all of the data, including LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and most importantly, if we're running other types of campaigns like email marketing campaigns and SMS or WhatsApp campaigns, which we support, we're going to need that data too. So depending on the campaigns we're running, we would need to decide whether to leave these checked as well. But since this is just a demo, we're just going to go ahead and run a search. And when we get the data back, we can either manually import that data if we're doing something very specific, or we can set it on auto extract. So what do I mean by that? Well, after we've identified the data that we want, like we have here, we've gone and searched for managing directors in Gloucester. We are then in a position to lock that that particular search criteria into our database. So I'm going to do that. I can, if I wanted to, I could just import these. We can change how many we want to search for, but I could just import those, which I've just done. Or I can also, and this is what we recommend, is I can click auto extract this data. And when I save this, you can see now we've got a schedule which has a green database icon, and this green database icon signifies that we've completed both parts of our data integration. So I just double click on that. We've actually completed the search. We've got the search from our social media, which is the first part, and we've also agreed that those filters are correct, and we've set this to auto extract. Without setting this to auto extract, we wouldn't be able to get the data from our own service. And that's important because sometimes the social media string or the social media search data could run out, and we don't want our lead generation to stop because we've run out of data. At any point though, if you see the database icon go red like this, we've just disconnected the data search from our tool. You can see it's gone red at the top. If it's red at the top, that means that there's a problem with the integration with our data. Maybe that's run out. It's quite unlikely because there's a lot of it, or maybe it's just not getting the right data back for some reason. If that stops working, this will go red. And similarly, if the search runs dry from our social media account, then the bottom half will go red. What you don't want to see is any red on that database icon. So it's important that you make sure that integration continues to feed data into LeadHootz at all times. And if you do try to turn it back on again, it won't let you unless you've run a search, because it needs to guarantee that there is data. Now that there's data there, if I click this now, you can see it's gone back to green. So what we've demonstrated today is that LeadHootz really provides data that bridges the gap for social media accounts that don't necessarily give us all of the data we want, and also doesn't give us the accuracy that we want. LeadHootz lets us do both, and it ensures that our lead generation is constantly being fed with high quality leads, so that what comes through the additional schedules, which we'll demonstrate in other videos, will be high value, long lasting, established relationships. Now, one question that's probably on your mind is, if our database is so advanced, and if there is so much of it, and if we have so many filters for it, why then do we even need to use LinkedIn as a primary data source in the first place? Well, the answer to that is, well, it's two or threefold. The first is we can't actually with LinkedIn just make connections without some mutual connections in the first place. That's the whole basis of LinkedIn. Facebook and Twitter have similar strategies and algorithms for managing relationship building, but on LinkedIn, you cannot just start connecting with people that you don't have at least one mutual relationship with first. The second is that often is the case, LinkedIn is really it really benefits people if they try to not just connect with people, but also try to establish and maintain those relationships. So LinkedIn and all these other social media platforms are really about relationships. And as part of that, we want our customers not just to have a high quality lead generation strategy, we want them to generate along the way as a byproduct long lasting relationships. So by using this tool, and as long as you're targeting the right people, you will be connecting with and engaging with people that can at some future point become a customer. The other reason for using LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter is that the data in those profiles are usually up to date. And so whenever we're using any kind of data, we want it to be up to date. People take pride in their profiles, and so they will work hard to keep those email addresses and phone numbers up to date. And because our service is two-way, as it's generating the leads, it's actually extracting the data and putting it back into the database and keeping that database live and current so that everybody benefits. So there are at least three good reasons that we want to still use our social media accounts as part of this. Of course, we do have customers that will just use the data for different things, and in another video I'll show you how you can get access to that data and export that for other CRMs or for other services that you might already be using. But ultimately, the tight coupling of the data we provide and alongside the social media accounts that we encourage people to use really give us the best mix when it comes to generating a high quality lead generation strategy. I hope this video has helped. If you do have any questions, please go ahead and leave some comments or go onto the website and pop a message over and I'll get right back to you. Thank you.